Hey everyone, so today I'm going to show you how I built this awesome baseball bat and walnut slab coffee table.
First thing we gotta do with this slab is get this crack cleaned out.
So I wanted to show you guys this really cool clip of me using this new idea of aluminum tape to make the dam for the epoxy pour. And let's just say I'm not going to be making that mistake again.
We may have had an epoxy explosion on that slab, so we'll get back to it later. We'll go ahead and start with the skirt. Obviously, if you're following along and trying to build your own coffee table like it, the links and stuff might be a little bit different on yours, but I'm going to build this skirt. It's going to be about 40 inches by 17 inches, then 3 inches wide on the skirt. And we'll just put it all together with our Craig jig.
Cut one edge first just so you're making sure you're getting accurate measurements off of it. Now with one clean edge, we can go ahead and I like to stack both pieces together so I can get the exact same cut on both of them. Drill in some pocket holes on your short sides.
All right, guys, we got our Craig screw pocket holes drilled in these side pieces. And now we'll go ahead and do a quick sanding. It's going to be far easier to sand it before we put it all together. But check out your piece of wood. This is when you really want to look at your grains, your striations, everything. See which one you want facing out. Sometimes they have a little bit of curly in them, which is kind of a wave that's opposite, perpendicular to the grain. And that's really pretty, especially at the when you put some finish on the project. So check out your piece of wood, pick which side you want faced out, and then only sand that side. You don't need to sand the inside, especially if you've planed and jointed them. That's plenty slick enough for anybody that gets under your table and looks up in there. They're not going to notice if it's sanded at 180 or just planed. I'm going to go ahead and sand it up to 180 grit, starting with 120.
Here's me trying to figure out where the heck I set that sandpaper. Spread some glue on the ends with a fancy glue spreading brush, just like a real woodworker.
You want to check this as we build the skirt, but now that we're finished with it, go ahead and recheck. Put it on a flat piece, plywood, workbench, whatever you got, and then check each corner. Make sure you don't have any that raise up. Make sure it's not warped. We want to make sure that when we cut these legs all at the same length and we put it on the skirt, we're not going to get a wobbly table because the skirt is wobbly. So make sure that's flat, then we know we can cut all the legs at the exact same length. So now we're going to move on to get the legs attached, and we've got to come up with a way to attach these baseball bats as the legs. As far as the height of your coffee table goes, most of them are going to be between 14 to 18 inches probably at the max for the height. The rule of thumb, if you really want to get specific, is typically whoever you're selling it to, whatever couch it's going in front of, you want to measure from the top of the cushion down to the floor, and the height of that, matching the height of the coffee table, is technically the best.
As I have now figured out, it's not easy getting accurate measurements and cuts on an uneven cylinder object, but I kind of did blow my mind with coming up with this laser idea. Now I can easily get perfect measurements on the bat, so now I'll just mark them out. Now that I've got all the bats accurately measured out, I can go ahead and throw them in the vise and start making our cut on the notch. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some saw sounds.
Now we'll move over to the miter saw so we can cut off the excess off the leg. It's going to be 3 inches above our saw mark.
With the saw mark in there, it makes it easy to measure the 3 inches up. Once I get this laser to stop yelling at me, we can go ahead and make our vertical lines. With those marked, we'll go and throw it back in the vise and make our final cut. Clean it up a little with the chisel and it'll be good to go. Go ahead and get your glue and pull that fancy brush back out. I did already mark out where I want these legs to be, so I lined that up. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a drill hole, and then we'll use a countersink bit, and then we'll throw our screw in. Now to use my favorite tool to clean up glue, a straw.
All right, let's flip it back over. Now, if you get to this stage and it is just a tad wobbly, now if it's pretty far off, make sure to fix it. But just a tad wobbly is fine because we will end up putting adjustable feet in here. Because whether it's perfectly straight or not, we know the floor, 99% of houses, is not going to be flat. So I always try to incorporate some of those adjustable feet best I can. And we're really lucky with these baseball legs. They all have that cutout in there.
Now we can finally get back to the slab. You're going to see a little bit of an epoxy mess on it, but just ignore that for now, and I'll show you what we'll do about that later. Let's move on to cutting the slab down to length. Now with the live edge on your first cut, you really have to try to eyeball and pay attention to what's going to be straight, and then once you get that one cut, you can base the other side right off of it. A quick test fit and trying to keep my butt out of your face.
I need to get a rectangle cut out of the middle of this table for some bats to go down in. So the best way to do this would be grabbing a combination square. I've got it set at the distance I need, 6.5 inches. It's going to be 6.5 inches down there. And you'll be able to get your line marked perfectly aligned with your edge. Now for the long ways one, usually most tables aren't going to be live edge, so you're able to then use your combination square also and connect it that way. This one's a little bit different, so we'll have to connect it point to point. Now I've got my line measured in the 6.5 inches. And like I said, the live edge keeps us from being able to do the same thing for that edge. So we need to find a point and point here and a point to point down there to be able to connect the lines. All right, I've got my points on both these lines now. So I'm just going to use my chalk line, pull it straight.
For this first cut, I can use a jigsaw and put it right in that crack and go ahead and cut the edge. Now for the other side, I'll drill a hole just big enough for the jigsaw blade so I can start a line over there.
All right, for the circular saw, you want to grab your foam blocks to put under it. I like this straight edge compared to the Bora one, just because I can slide this one straight to the line. I want to go ahead and put that bow tie in before I make the final cut, getting this rectangle out, just in case the wood tries to expand or move. I would like to have that bow tie set in there.
I love this Rockler bow tie jig. Now, I'm not sponsored or anything, but if they want to, definitely give me a call. But I recommend this for any woodworker. It works perfect on creating these bow ties. With the edge cut out, I can take it over to the bandsaw and rip it out.
Now just have to connect the corners and the middle will be out.
I'm glad I put this bow tie in because you'll see here exactly what I was talking about when I was saying the tension might release. The middle is out and the coffee tabletop is looking great. We'll go ahead and test fit the bats in there to make sure they're going to fit.
Alright, so far everything's going good. We're going to put some cross member pieces for the skirt, but those will also double as the edge of what will be this box. So we're going to flip this over, bottom up. We'll bring the legs over here, flip it down. I took some measurements, but I'm also going to eyeball it with the workpiece just because I don't trust myself. So we'll double up our checks and then we can get it straight.
The idea here is definitely simple. It's just using some Craig screws to put these cross members in, but you definitely want to do a lot of measurements and rechecking and checking after each one to make sure you get them perfectly lined up. I went ahead and got the sides of the box cut down to fit between these cross member pieces. So here I'm just test fitting, making sure it's okay. And we're going to use Craig screws to put it into the cross members. But before we do that, we're going to take what will be the base of the box and go ahead and attach these to it. The base of the box is just simply that piece that we cut out of the middle of the slab. For what will feel like the 1,000th time, go ahead and make some pocket holes. Throw a little glue on these sides and we'll go ahead and get them screwed in. Pay special attention that the side with the grain that looks the best is going to be facing on the inside of the box. Some GRK fasteners and we won't waste any time. Make sure it's going to fit exactly how we want. If not, go ahead and make some more adjustments. Making sure this box is going to be exactly where we want it definitely took a lot more time than I thought and a lot more math than I thought it would take. But it's got so many points where it needs to be perfect, so you really want to stop, pay attention, and make sure you get this exactly where you want it. A touch of glue on the ends, and I'm going to use my super fancy brush for this. I'm going to check my measurement for the 1,000th time and then also try to have 3 hands here to hold everything in place. Without dropping the top, let's go ahead and test fit and hope everything came out exactly how we wanted. And by some woodworking miracle, it has come out perfectly. Let's go ahead and move over to sanding it. I use this belt sander to really bite into it for the first one, but then I won't bore you with all the Orville sanding I'm going to do after. We'll skip right into the new epoxy strategy I'm going to go with, which is this epoxy paste. I've seen this on a few videos and I've really been wanting to try it out. It's super simple stuff. You just mix it together and then mush it in the crack. Alright, let's let that dry. I'm going to go ahead and throw this blanket down, and we'll put the coffee table upside down so we can put those adjustable feet in finally. It's a simple process, just drilling out a hole. I do like to throw a piece of tape on my drill bit so I don't go down too far. I had some bug holes from when this was a full-size tree, so I used leftover epoxy from that to go ahead and fill in all these holes. This epoxy sanded off super well. Here I'm just cleaning up some of the edges from the saws with a chisel. Before your final sanding, go ahead and knock down all your corners so they're not too sharp.
Alright guys, now we're moving on to a really cool part of the project, which will be our hidden drawer. Now this hidden drawer technically wasn't part of the build whenever I quoted it. They just kind of asked for if there's any way I could put something in like that. It'd be a really cool idea. So in other words, I don't want to spend too much money on hardware and things, and I don't want to spend too much time trying to build this. So I've come up with a super creative idea of just using a few screws and a couple pieces of wood to create this hidden drop-down drawer. Now our setup here would just be using our slide. We got a stop block. We're going to cut right down the middle with the table saw here. So I've got my clamp holding that up straight so I don't lose a finger. So let's go ahead and do it.
You want to make sure to keep the same edge pushed up against your fence. Test fit that your 2-inch screw is going to fit. Now measure and cut the blocks down.
Alright, got our plywood, oak plywood. Then grab your 2 pieces, go ahead and slide them together. Make sure you have them where they're lined up perfectly. Sometimes, depending on how you cut it, if it wasn't perfectly middle, it might be a little offset. They're not faced the right way. So make sure to put them together and that they're equal. Then go ahead and spread them out to be your ends. And we'll take our plywood, go ahead and lay on. I'm going to try to get our screws in here. This first one, obviously you want to try to get it in the middle as best you can so that it's not too wobbly. But you can eyeball this one if you want and then measure the next one off of this one.
It may still warp a little bit under pressure, so I'm going to add this maple crossmember piece.
Alright, this will come up from the bottom. Now we've just got to get one screw here, one screw over here. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and install just a little piece of wood that's going to be sliding underneath that will hold it up on both sides. Because we can install that, then it can hold it up for us, so we can easily have our screws measured out.
Set the drawer now in on its stoppers, and it'll be perfectly measured for our screws. Not my best angle of video, but you get the idea. Now release the stoppers and see if it works.
We're going to move on to adding the glass that's going to be sunk into here. So I just need some runners to go along the sides here that are going to hold the glass. So I just made a couple strips that are same length as the length here inside the box.
Picked up some gardener glass from Lowe's. Now they can cut this down to size for you, but I just bought a cheap glass cutter and it's very simple to cut glass to the size you want. Check out the perfect fit, make sure it's level. Now we can move on to using our Kreg jig to make some Kreg pocket holes to be able to connect the base to the top. With that done, I got some battery powered LED lights and I think it'll look really cool in the box.
All right, let's go ahead and skip to everybody's favorite part.
I'm going to be using Rubio Monocoat as the finish just because it's so simple, it comes out so beautiful, and has a really good protection on it. Alright, we are finally all done. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and definitely subscribe to see more.